Hello, genealogists. It's Craig again with Just Genealogy. And today we go into our second series of beginning genealogy. I've always wanted to teach a beginning genealogy course, so I'm having a lot of fun doing this, putting it all together for you. So the most important part about genealogy is the skill building part. And today we're going to talk about working from what you know. Record, always cite your sources, and become a skeptic. Most genealogists are skeptics. So the most important thing you can do is work from what you know. How do you know that this is the answer? How are you positive, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you have found the correct fact and that you can integrate this correct fact into your analysis? How do you know? Did somebody tell you? Well, if they told you, how did they know? How do you know they're right? Do you trust sources? I actually don't trust sources, any source, in isolation. You have to ask the question, why do you believe it to be a fact? You know, good genealogy is not just transferring facts from one place to another. It's not sitting down with Ancestry and pulling out everybody else's tree and adding it to your tree. That's not what good genealogy is. Good genealogy is looking at those trees, analyzing what you see in those trees, and does it all make sense, and does it all work, and are there sufficient sources? You always want to analyze things in context. If you go out to legacy webinars, you'll find, if you search for the word context or Elizabeth Shown Mills, you'll find an excellent legacy webinar on the concept of context. I can't add to that. So the next most important thing is record. Do you have a record keeping system? Is it paper? Is it computer? Is it genealogical software? What are your organizational precepts? What drives you? Mine is not genealogical software. I find source citation in genealogical software doesn't meet my personal requirements for it. I do mostly things in my computer, usually in a Microsoft Word document, because I write as I go when I'm doing my work. So therefore, I'm writing constantly. And it may be that there are things on paper, but most of that is residual from old school before I knew how to do it on a computer properly. So do I have a record keeping system? Yes. For the Scott 1 name study, I have 5-drawer file cabinets that I can't find anything in. And in fact, the truth of the matter is I have so many terabytes of material attached to my computer that I'm not sure I can find everything I'm looking for on my computer either. But you have to have some sort of record-keeping system, and you have to decide how it's going to work for you. I have a variety of different systems as a function of what I'm actually doing. Some of them are just file folders. Again, I cannot overemphasize the need for you to understand evidence explained or evidence. Citation and analysis is so very important to being a genealogist. My recommendation is you keep it close. If you have to get up and walk to go and get it, it's not close enough. Is it on your desk? No. Is it within hand's reach? Yes. So it's within my 3 feet rule. In other words, I can reach for it without having to stand up. Genealogical proof standard, genealogy standards, all those kind of things. In the past, I haven't talked about what standards I'm talking about because I thought in the future I will talk about these standards one by one, and I will. But in the interim, waiting for that, what we're talking about today is in the Genealogy Standards 2nd edition revised, you want to be looking at standards 37 through 50 and understanding those standards. They will help you understand the things that I'm talking about today. Another book that will help you is Patricia Law Hatcher's Producing a Quality Family History. This is probably one of the best books ever written on how to do genealogy, with a wrong title. Remember I once told you about Helen Leary and her book on North Carolina research, it being that kind of book? Well, Hatcher's book is the same way. I have mine on a Kindle so that I can get to it wherever I am, whenever I want to get to it. She has 3 rules for genealogy. 3 rules of genealogy. They are: rule number 1, document your sources. Rule number 2, document your sources. Rule number 3, document your sources. It's sort of like my rule for numbering, which I'll talk about at some point in the future. My 3 rules of numbering. And they are, oh, never mind. I'll tell you later. You'll just have to wait. For 15 years, I did genealogy wrong. And part of the reason for why I did it wrong is I didn't properly document my sources. You need to learn how to document your sources in order to be a genealogist rather than just a person doing genealogy. So for every statement of fact, whether it be a date, a place, a name, a relationship, you have to provide a citation. Otherwise, 1, how do you know where it came from? 2, how can you substantiate its plausibility? And more importantly, how will your reader know that you're in fact giving them good stuff? So a list of sources is not a citation. You want to make sure that it's possible for the reader to know exactly where a specific piece of evidence came from. You just don't want them to have to willy-nilly go through all your sources to figure out which one applies to this place. It's very frustrating when you find a book and then at the end of the book is a bibliography that says, this is where I got all this information from. That's not as frustrating as when you read in an introduction that they didn't cite their sources because there wasn't enough space, or they didn't index a book because there wasn't enough time. All kinds of problems. Proper citation ties each piece of evidence to its source. And proper documentation is so much more than just citing sources. What's also important is that you become a skeptic. You'll learn words like probably, possibly, likely, maybe. Our evaluation and analysis of records is crucial to our outcome. Just because you found it, that does not make it true. You just don't know how true that is. After all, if you found it on the internet, it's correct, right? Trust nothing. Genealogists are not people who trust. They trust nothing. They trust no one. They get to the original source. They get to more than one source. They make sure that those 2 sources or more than 2 sources are not based on the same mistake. Nothing is worse in genealogy than having a dozen sources that all say the wrong thing. They're all based on a single source, and that single source was wrong to begin with. What you want to search for is evidence independence. That's BCG standard number 46. Things that stand alone, that are supported by other things that stand alone. So if you go to Evidence Explained and look on pages 19 to 20, you'll find something called levels of confidence. Now, I am doing this in a short version, not the expanded version. I request that you go to Evidence Explained because you've all bought it right now, right? And look on page 19 to 20 and flush these out. Certainly means I have no reasonable doubt. Probably it's more than likely than not. Likely, some evidence supports this assertion, but not probably or certainly. Possibly, odds are just slightly in favor of this assertion. Apparently, it could be, but I'm not sure. Perhaps it's plausible, but I don't know yet. These are levels of confidence. Now, I have additions to these levels of confidence, 3 of them, in fact. One is, oh, hell no. And that's that it's false, not possible, impossible, an unresolvable conflict. A good example of that is a child is born before their father is born. How's that work? Or a child is born when their father is 6, or their mother is 6. I don't think so. That means, in my mind, that it's illogical, it's not reasonable. Now, Just because I start out with I don't think so doesn't mean it doesn't improve over time because I find more information. But I don't think so. When I look at something, a 7-year-old in the Revolutionary War, that's pretty illogical, not reasonable. But I have found 7-year-olds in the Revolutionary War with further research. You can find those kinds of pieces in the book Underage Warriors, for example. Then a little bit higher than that is I doubt it, which means in my mind probably not likely, but that could be a function of my own personal education. That could be a function of not enough evidence collection. That could be a function of a lot of things. So I have these 3 editions. Oh, hell no, I don't think so, and I doubt it. All help me figure out how to get it closer to those other levels of evidence. I also have a rule in my own mind as a publisher. Remember, I publish a lot of things. I have 10,000 books in print, and I sell a lot of other people's stuff. It never fails when you publish something that you will find out that the minute you publish it, you find new information that could either make your assumptions or your assertions wrong, or it could add immeasurably to things that were plausible, but now they're closer to the quote truth, or maybe not. But I always look to believe that if it's published, it's wrong. And that always puts me in a good position because I sleep better at night. So what we've done today in a very short time frame is talk about working from what you know, record, or cite. Remember to always cite your sources, and remember that it's important as a genealogist to be skeptical of anything that you're looking at. Look for evidence independence. So, this has been Craig with Just Genealogy, converting people doing genealogy into genealogists day by day. This has been so much fun. I think the next one we're going to talk about is sources, home sources, family sources, those kind of things. So look forward to seeing that at some point in the future. And I appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Hit that notification bell. Tell your friends. Moving right along. I appreciate you all very much.